given the failure of Snow White, and it is not to be mistaken that a movie as big as a Disney live action remake losing in its second weekend at the box office to like a small to mid budget action movie is a failure of epic proportions. And realistically, whole executives should be getting fired for this. People whose job it is to advise Disney and help make them money and turn a profit should be losing their jobs for the failure of this movie. And somebody like Rachel Zegler should at the very least become a cautionary tale in so long as she takes the time to rebuild a reputation both as a personality on social media and as an actress. So she should be adjusting her social media presence, focusing on putting out stuff that she can actually get hired in, and rebuilding trust with audiences. But that's not what's going to happen. And one of the reasons for that is even though the trades threw her under the bus, her fellow Hollywood actors are all in for her and want to throw their support behind her.
Did you see the post of her hanging out the RV? The Instagram post, what she said, #1 movie in the world.
That was the most insane cope I've ever seen.
Okay, so there's that
was probably mandated by Disney.
I almost feel like that was tongue in cheek. That was her laughing at herself.
Think
a
so?
lot of people think that was her narcissism and that she actually thought it was the #1 in the movie in the world. Regardless, that is like hanging on the side of the Titanic as it sinks and saying, "We'll be there soon." You know, like it.
So the #1 person here to mention is Pedro Pascal, who everybody seems to hate these days because he's in absolutely everything. He shared a post in support of Zegler where he said he put icon, and they're now writing articles about how Rachel Zegler's actually an icon because of the failure of this movie, because she stood up to the studios, and they're just kind of writing off the failure of the movie as Gal Gadot's fault, which is insane cope because as bad as Gal Gadot is in the movie, and she's not good in the movie, she's only in it for a couple of minutes, and as good as Rachel Zegler is in the movie, and I do believe that she was good in the movie, this movie was dead on arrival. This movie, she could have turned in a generational performance for this movie, and it still would have flopped because of all of the things that screwed up leading up to its release.
That's what I was saying before, like politics aside, because I know the Israel-Palestine thing was a huge focus, but especially because Gal is Israeli, and Rachel Zegler's been very outspoken for Palestine. But I'm like, that aside,
that's not why people hated this movie. That's
like,
not why people ditched this movie. They ditched this movie because of her comments in 2022 about the prince being a stalker and how the original movie scared. That's why people skipped it.
The claim that I'm making that she's just not likable. She's not someone you're rooting for. You kind of think like she's a bit much, you know, and people aren't going to see a movie like that.
Can you think of an actor who that works for? Are there actors that come off as unlikable?
Look at Shia LaBeouf. When he started doing his activism stuff, I mean, yes, he got arrested and had some legal trouble there. But no, when he started really doing his activism stuff, Hollywood ditched him so fast.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had a negative impact quite like Snow White did, but it's like people, like, again, when you distract someone from the art that is movies, that's supposed to transport you to another world, you're supposed to forget about things in your own life and enjoy the 2 hours that you have or hour and a half. And when you have someone like Zegler, like activist Shia LaBeouf, that's a distraction. You can't truly enjoy the art when there's political messaging. That's a distraction. It takes you out of it.
Also, I saw people compare her comments to Mark Ruffalo's political comments. The difference is Mark Ruffalo is not the draw in Avengers. He's a character people like, but he's
inoffensive.
He's
in the movies.
Like, he's not the greatest Bruce Banner, but he's not hated.
And before he started becoming really outspoken, he was cemented as Bruce Banner Hulk.
And he wasn't making comments about the Hulk being bad. He wasn't talking down about the Avengers. He was talking about politics. And I don't believe that Rachel Zegler's comments about Palestine are the reason people didn't go to see this movie.
I think that's just part of it. I think it's her comments about Snow White. I think it's her comments about Israel Palestine. I think it's her like kind of mean girl snarky remarks at all these interviews. It's just you don't. She's not pleasant to be around. That's the feeling I get. And why would I go watch a movie if I'm not enjoying her presence.
So Zegler says that Ariana Grande, Helen Mirren, and Lucy Liu have all reached out to her privately. Earlier in March, Zegler said that Jamila Jamil and her Shazam! Fury of the Gods co-stars Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu have supported her privately amid public backlash over the last few years. She says, Jamila Jamil is a big sister to me. She said about the Good Place actor, I love that she has no regrets about being outspoken, about being strong-willed and strong-minded. So that's actually the crux of what I think this is. So Pedro Pascal supports her, right? Fine. I want to know why he didn't support Gina Carano when he worked with Gina Carano in The Mandalorian.
I think this is 100% because of how brutal.
They agree politically.
There's that, but just how brutal this L was, dude. Like, it's hard. Like, when the Lions went 0-16, they didn't win a single game in the season, right? It was a spectacle, right? It was tough to watch. You felt bad for every single player on that team.
Olivia's probably yelling at the screen right now.
You feel bad for every single player on that team. Yeah, they sucked. They couldn't win a game. But you also feel bad because it must be terrible. You empathize a little bit of being in such a failure. And that's what this is. Regardless of her politics, generally humans want to see other humans succeed. And so when it's such a failure, dude, that's why I think you're seeing this sympathy or empathy from some of these other Hollywood actors.
No, I don't think so.
It's also the politics. Don't get me wrong.
I think it's partially the politics.
But no one wants to see a car crash this bad.
I think it's because they want the blank check. They want the carte blanche to be able to say whatever they want, and they don't want the blame to fall back on them when the projects fail. They want all of the benefits and none of the risk.
Dude, but there is such, like, you know how easy it is to, like, have your politics be vocal and be inoffensive? Chris Pratt does it all the time, right? There's a lot of people.
He doesn't actually say that much, and most of that is actually.
But his politics are known.
No, not really.
I would say they are.
Like the most of it.
Amount.
Most of it is Twitter people who don't like him making up conspiracy theories in their mind. He didn't show up to a Kamala Harris fundraiser, or not. It was like a Joe Biden fundraiser in 2020, and then because all of the other Avengers did, and he goes, they didn't ask me. Now it's probably because he didn't want to go anyways, but he didn't say no. It's because I'm voting this way. Right. For the most part, he's not super
well, that's what I said.
He's pretty vague. He's pretty opaque.
Yes, but maybe that's the difference between being an offensive political activist and being inoffensive, right?
Yeah. It's an art form.
You pretty much know why he was either uninvited, not invited at all, or chose not to go on his own behalf. We can all kind of guess what the reason for that was.
Yeah.
Right? But he's not out here throwing a hissy fit.
So Stephanie says, of course Pedro Pascal stands with Rachel Zegler. This is the guy who compared Trump supporters to Nazis and decided to come after content creators when they made videos about it. And Disney did nothing. Meanwhile, Gina Carano was fired.
Yeah.
Yes. That's another big part of the problem here. Did you guys see the story over the weekend where ESPN put out their list of like the greatest female MMA fighters of all time, and Gina Carano was conspicuously left off that list? Well, guess who owns ESPN? Disney. You'd think if they wanted to get back in her good graces and not and try to get this lawsuit solved, the first thing they do is be intellectually honest about what she means to the world of MMA.
Dude, it really goes to show that some people, they peaked at high school, and I don't mean in fame, I mean in maturity levels. That the same stuff, the same petty little grudges people hold, like I see it in Congress today, and I see it in Hollywood, that these people are still acting like high schoolers, right? Holding these petty little grudges. Man, they're like, I bet the writer of that list like was smirking to himself, be like, ooh, this will show her by leaving her off the list. So
let's go through a couple more. So Ethel Kane says, don't let them get you down, legend. They really do want a world where you're just look, there are repercussions to your behavior when you're expected to shepherd a multi-million-dollar production, let alone something that costs $300 million, and actions do have consequences. And I'm not saying that's the greatest thing in the world, but if you want to take the multi-million-dollar contract to make the money, then there's going to be some expectations as for your online decorum.
I think you're going too easy, though, right? What Anthony Mackie did, that was like a mistake, and yes, there's consequences. When he said Captain America doesn't represent America, or whatever his exact words was, right? That was one kind of gaffe at an interview. Rachel Zegler had a a pattern, interview after interview, appearance after appearance, tweet after tweet, where she showed you exactly who she was. So it's not just like, well, you made a mistake, now there's consequences. No, like, this is who you are. Like, and people don't like it. People don't want it.
I grabbed some of the quote tweets about Pedro Pascal supporting Rachel Zegler, and I thought some of them were funny. This person says, I just remembered he actually worked with Gal Gadot. Yes, he did in Wonder Woman 1984. But I don't think that's necessarily because he dislikes Gal Gadot. I think that he just sees Rachel Zegler as getting the brunt of the...
But here's the difference, too, with Pedro Pascal.
I mean, maybe it's true. Maybe
and these other people that are voicing support, right? They're not bringing down others that different. They're just showing where they stand. And I think if you're going to be an activist actress or actor, that's how you do it. Like, everyone knows that Pedro Pascal's always voicing support. Like, when he voiced support for his co-star in The Last of Us. What's her name? Bella Ramsey, right? But he didn't like go after people from what I remember. And he's not saying that critics are wrong. He's just hyping up Rachel Zegler.
As far as I'm concerned, there should be no activism once the movie reaches a certain budget. You're like,
the problem is there's a way to be an activist.
This is my most
like people just need not to piss everyone off.
This is my most authoritarian take. Is like, if you're going to be put in charge and expected to front a movie that costs $300 million, you should have no social media life of your own for the length of that movie's promotional process. So from the moment it starts filming to the release of the movie, and for the first month afterwards, when it's in its strongest part at the box office, you should have no social media posts outside of content that is related to the film. You want to have a private account with your family and friends where, you know, not everybody can follow you and you have to like accept friendships. That's one thing. But if they're going to pay you millions of dollars and bet on you to work on something that's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not just art for the sake of art. This is a profit-seeking venture, or at least it used to be.
Well, and I can't blame you for feeling that way, but like, this is kind of like where one person ruins it for everyone. And Rachel Zegler is that one person. Because like, I honestly, if you're inoffensive, I don't mind people sharing their own opinions, but it's when you then go and attack other people who disagree with you.
Also, I will say that much of this fault does fall on Disney for hiring her and not finding a way to rein her in or just replacing her early on. She having her opinions is what they are. Go and make the independent movies that you like to make. She could have a very successful career. She still could, doing independent movies like A24, stuff like that, Blumhouse, and promote all of the activism you want, because the people who are watching those movies oftentimes do align with you politically anyways, and it would be good promotion for those movies since they're going to fall in line. I imagine Rachel Zegler making some type of movie about the evils of AI, and then all of the pretentious Hollywood art nerds who want to talk about the evils of AI will fall right in line with that, and it'll do great. I mean, I don't know if the movie will do good, but if it's a horror movie, it probably will.
Someone in chat, I can't pronounce the name, but says, why doesn't she have people to tell her this? She should have people to tell her.
I mean, this is what happened.
Okay, I guarantee she had people who told her not to do this. They got fired, and then she surrounded herself with yes men.
This is what happened. So So a producer in the movie, after she made these comments, had to fly out to her, and that's what the whole stuff was. It Jonah Platt. The whole stuff last week was about how this producer for the movie had to fly out and have a conversation with her, and she didn't want to hear it. So remember when Gina Carano made her very, very tame social media post where she basically said, you know, we shouldn't be mean to each other because back in, you know, before the Holocaust, you know, people were othering each other, and that led to awful things without calling out any one side. She was called evil. Twitter tried to put her head on a spike, on a pike, and then eventually Disney tried to make her go on like a 40-person Zoom struggle session with members of the LGBTQ community because she put beep bop boop in her profile because she was being badgered to put her pronouns. When Disney wants to exert and apply pressure, they can. And to Gina's credit, She was fired and then sued, but she didn't want to leave that project. She probably felt like she was being abandoned. They did not abandon Rachel Zegler. They just kept the course at the loss of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and I think when people like Zegler and her crowd, when they hear criticisms to their opinions, they take that as a direct attack rather than what it really is, just a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
They take that as you're evil, you're a Nazi, how dare you disagree with my worldview. And so that's why they lash out and they get so bitter and crazy. Like,
how about this? If you were wondering what the most random person whose opinion could be asked about this situation, how about the son of John Legend?
Oh.
Or John Lennon, not John Legend. John Lennon
equally
and
random.
John Lennon and Yoko Ono's son has gotten in on this discussion. He slams Snow White star Rachel Zegler for acting like a spoiled, ungrateful, and disconnected brat. Sean Ono Lennon took to X to deliver the scathing response to the actress. He says, I agree the vilification went too far, but she also acts like a spoiled, ungrateful, and disconnected brat, so it's no surprise.
That's true, but at the same, not to infantilize Rachel Zegler, but what is she, 22?
Doesn't matter.
No, but what I'm just saying is if she's been a child star, like going back to that guy's comment, why isn't anyone in her corner? Producers aside, she has no one in her corner telling her what is right and wrong, what is the way to like conduct herself, right? Like that's why she's 22, still acting like a spoiled 15-year-old, right? Like you need people that'll disagree with you. And a lot of times these people, especially if they have money, they'll make sure they surround themselves with people who that is never an option, that they will only agree with you.
The owner of Evie Magazine has chimed in. Where was this energy with Gina Carano? Coward, she says to Pedro Pascal. I agree.
Didn't they were on The Mandalorian together?
Yes, they were.
And has Pedro said anything publicly one way or the other?
If I remember correctly, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that she said that they are friendly behind the scenes, and she probably doesn't, because Gina seems like a really nice person, she probably doesn't hold it against him for not speaking out to the detriment of his own career, but I don't know.
It's so crazy that there's like just one side.
But if anybody could have stood up and kept her from getting fired, it would have been him. He was the star of the show.
It's so hilarious that there's this group of crybabies in our society that everyone's just like, oh, we know how that's going to go, so you better keep your mouth shut.
Here's another one. I want you guys to let me know whether you think this is delusional or not. He says, I think Platt & Co. really underestimated how much the tide has turned and how much people like Zegler.
Actors to Broadway.
Actors liking Zegler is not the same thing as normal people liking Zegler.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you saw the awards season go the way it went this year. Like I've never seen a disconnect quite like we saw this year.
This person says, there is nothing iconic about him or her. I understand Hollywood actors have egos and they live in toxic fantasy land, but please, Pedro, come down to earth. Don't even bother. Don't even bother.
I guess that was my point of like the way Pedro kind of handles himself. Like, yes, he is one of the most, politically activist of the actors. Like, you definitely put him towards that extreme, but he's not offensive when he does these things.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Pedro Pascal is absolutely as offensive. Comparing Trump supporters to Nazis.
Did he do that?
Yes, he did.
I didn't know he did that. Then why is that kind of get swept under the rug, but Zegler's behavior not?
Because he's a guy. I have no idea. I don't know. You could make the argument like why did Disney not throw him? Well, I guess The Mandalorian was still in production and still viable, but I don't know. He had these posts about calling Trump supporters Nazis. So he is every bit as offensive and should not be left off the hook.
I guess he's more creative. He knows how to do the song and dance a little bit more.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.